What's up, LSATers? Thank you for watching my very first ever LSAT video. Hopefully today I can impart some of my LSAT wisdom that I've gained over years of teaching people how to be awesome at this test. This first video is specifically for beginners who want to be great at the LSAT. So if you're a beginner who wants to be okay at the LSAT, you want to get a 152 and get into your little rinky-dink law school, local law school, and practice DUI law, then this video is not for you. But if you want to be excellent and get into a top 10 law school and change the world or become really rich, whatever it is, why ever you want to be a lawyer, I don't know, then this is more up your alley. So what I want to do is just kind of give you a basic overview without a whole lot of technique. I'll get into some technique in some other videos. This is more of a general strategy, general overview type video of how you should approach the LSAT. I'm going to talk a little bit about some mistakes that people make for particular sections, but this is more of a general overview. So the first thing, if you're just starting out, the main thing is your attitude. You need to get psycho about this test. You need to love it. You need to love it, even if you hate it. I know that doesn't make any sense, but my students who do the best, my students who succeed in getting into top 10 law schools, have one thing in common, and that's their attitude. Even if they hate this test, even if they just can't stand it and they think it's a total waste of time and a joke, they convince themselves that they love it. And that's a big factor in their success. So with that comes a lot of things. Once you get pumped up about this exam, you need to give it the appropriate amount of time. So in terms of your schedule, this is like a part-time job. It's a part-time job that you love. So that's really key. If you are thinking you're going to be awesome at this test and you're going to be taking it in 1 month from now, you are wrong. Probably, unless you've already studied a lot or you're just a genius. To get truly great takes time. I would say at least 3 months. You're looking at least 3 months. Which brings me to the number one mistake that people make when prepping for the LSAT. Number one mistake, at least in my experience. They go too fast. For the first month, at least, I recommend that you throw away the timer. Don't practice time tests. Don't practice time sections. I know that on test day, you're going to be under very, very tight time constraints, right? But you're never going to get awesome if you don't throw away the timer and really get deep into this test. The best way to get deep into this test is to really, really examine the sections, the questions, the overall structure of the test, and the overall structure of the individual question types. When you get to logical reasoning on test day, you should be able to immediately identify every single question type that's on there right away without having to look through the stim. As you're reading the stimulus, you're like, okay, this is resolve the paradox, I know exactly how to get into this. And the only way that you can get to that point is by taking your time in the beginning. When you're doing logic games, take your time. Take your time. Don't feel like you need to do it in 8 minutes and 30 seconds. Okay, eventually, yeah. But at first, no. And the same thing for logical reasoning applies to analytical reasoning in terms of really understanding the structure. Because that's the key to getting awesome at this test, is first recognizing that there's consistent structure across the test. Okay, from test to test to test to test, structure is the same. And then you begin to see patterns. And once you see those patterns, that's when your score starts really, really getting up there. So that's the next thing. Slow down. In terms of just a couple of key pointers I'm going to give you for each section, for logical reasoning, here's a mistake that people make in the beginning, okay? And don't do this. Well, first of all, I recommend for logical reasoning that you start with the stimulus and then go to the stem. I know that there's test prep companies out there that have you start with the stem and then go to stimulus. If you don't know what stimulus and stem, what I mean by that, the stimulus is the big part and the stem is the part that says, which of the following best describes the author's blah, 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 blah. Okay? So, read the stimulus very carefully, read the stem very carefully, and then stop. That's the key. Okay? The mistake that people make in the beginning is they treat it all like one thing. They go straight from the stem to the answer choices. If you do that, you are playing right into the test maker's game, and they want you to fail. Okay? So you need to stop, you need to think, and if it's a question type that you can pre-phrase for, like if you can think of the answer, some sort of a potential answer before you get into the answer, this is when you do that. Even if it's not, you need to stop and think before you hit up the answer choices. Never, ever, ever go straight to the answer choices, okay? For reading comprehension. Reading comprehension is the most difficult section for people to get better at because, you know, most of us, if we're good readers because we've been reading our entire life, right? You can't all of a sudden start cramming for reading, but there are some things you can do that can raise your score for reading comprehension. One of the things, obviously, is to do a ton of passages and really develop some familiarity for the question types, so that when you're reading the passage, you have an idea of what you're going to get hit with. That's important. But the main thing that you should be doing, that students don't do, even when I tell them to do it, but it is critical and you should do it, is you need to be reading a ton outside of this test. What I mean by that is, in addition to all the work that you're spending trying to get good at the LSAT by practicing the LSAT itself, you need to be reading hardcore publications. By hardcore, I don't mean hardcore, I mean The Economist. Deep writing that requires some thought and some analysis. And with all the publications that you read, you need to be reading with purpose, or with a purpose in mind. Don't just read for facts. That's not going to help you on the LSAT. You need to read deeply and try to get into the author's head. Even if it's the most dry material you've ever heard in your entire life about tectonic plates on Mars or something, you need to be thinking about the author. Why is the author writing this? Is it to inform, to refute, to advocate? That's where you need to get. So that's some basic stuff about reading comprehension. And I guess the last thing is the games. The games gives people hell. People have the hardest time with games in the beginning because it's so foreign to what you're used to, but the games can be a lot of fun. And the main thing I want to tell you in the beginning for the games, other than to do them untimed, do a ton of them untimed, is don't start with the questions until you have thoroughly uncovered the inferences. There is almost always, no matter what the game type, whether it's a linear game, sequencing game, grouping game, whatever the game type, there's going to be some deep hidden inference that you're expected, if you want to get the answer choices correct, you're expected to find that before you start hitting up the answers, hitting up the questions. So stop, think, and try and find that hidden inference because it's there. Okay? If you've never played games before, if you've never played the logic games, you have no idea what I'm talking about. For those of you who have, you probably have some idea of what I'm talking about. So that's my basic advice. It's really, really general. But the other thing is just keep going at it. Even if you actually take the test and you don't do as well on it as you thought you would, the other thing that people have in common who do great on this test is they don't give up. If you give up, you lose. And you're going to get into some crappy law school, or maybe not get into law school at all. Just stay with it. You can get better at this test if you practice. Take a ridiculous amount of practice tests, and but keep in mind, don't burn out and have fun. It's fun, even if it's not fun. You got to convince yourself that you're having the time of your life. And I'll try and post some more stuff later on that's maybe a little bit more specific. See ya.